Today is a very special day because today we have a guest with us. And before I introduce our guest, I want to ask you, our listeners, a question. When you were younger, were you someone who had dreams of going to school for veterinary medicine? Were you someone who always wanted to make a difference in your community, have this ripple effect that really extended beyond yourself? And were you someone that kind of wanted to leave a legacy by working with animals? I'm asking this question because on today's episode, we are joined by Brit'nee Haskins. She is the co-team lead of the Street Dog Coalition's Richmond, Virginia chapter. And I feel like I haven't even asked Brit'nee this question yet, but I feel like Brit'nee might have maybe been that person. Um, Watch Brit'nee. When I bring you in, you're gonna be like, no, I was not that person at all. But Brit'nee is a graduate of the University of Illinois College of Veterinary Medicine. Brit'nee's journey led her from a rotating internship at Friendship Hospital for Animals in Washington, D.C., to the Richmond SPCA. So her dedication to serving pets and their loved ones in the Richmond community has been a driving force in her work, obviously. So I'm very excited for everyone to join us as we delve into Brit'nee's experiences, the impact of SDC and SDC's work in Richmond, and maybe Brit'nee, just start us off by, was my inkling right? Were you that child when you were younger?
Pretty much. I think it definitely manifested in different ways. I think the biggest thing is that like as a kid and as a child, I was the only child for a decade until my brothers came along.
Oh,
But
wow.
yes, but as a only child and being raised by both sets of my grandparents with my parents, I was always taught to nurture and basically nurture and humility in all
Oh,
aspects of life.
love that.
So, and then of course was introduced to animals very young. Always had an animal in my life, in my household. Like I really don't know a life without animals in my life.
Wow.
Um, not a lot of exotics, but like dogs, cats,
Yeah.
horses, a guinea pig, things like that, always around. So, um, if I had a responsibility to my animals, it was on me to always do the right thing and always be humble in doing that.
I love that. That's fantastic. And I have to believe that that maybe like laid the foundation for you having the career you have now. And maybe
Mm.
you can kind of shine a light on what inspired you, now that we know a little bit, now that I just created a history for you that didn't exist and fortunately wasn't too off from the history you had. Maybe you can share with us what inspired you to join the Street Dog Coalition and become a part of the Richmond chapter. Is there like a particular experience or person that motivated you to get involved?
hmm Um, I can't think of a specific experience, but I knew that in my career now, I'll just say this. I had an inkling in my career before school, like while I was getting my animal experience to apply to vet school. I actually worked at the Richmond SPCA as a vet assistant, or actually as a receptionist and then a vet assistant, trying to work my way up and get some experience. But I actually just forgot the question. Repeat it.
You know, for a second, I forgot the question too. So the question is, was there I love
Yes.
this. I love this
Yes, yes,
certain
yes.
person moment
I
that
got it.
inspired you?
I got it. Yes. So working in the shelter right out of undergrad and being exposed to that, like all the experience I had was always before that was always my personal animals, right? And working on like local farms, like horse farms with my mom and all that stuff. But this was the first time that I was around like animal welfare and working with larger populations of animals in need. And so that kind of started the initial like, this is something that really actually gives me life. Then going through school and doing my internship, I thought I wanted to go like take my career in one way, but I always ended up in my free time or in like away rotations or whatnot. I was always spending time in shelters. So it was always kind of in my being. Like I couldn't, like every year I was trying to figure out a way to be around animals that were in need. So then when I returned to Richmond SPCA in 2019, I have been working with a lot of populations or families that already qualify for our low cost full service hospital. But I also continue to see more need that we weren't reaching just
Mm,
because of the nature of like location. Like, of course, we don't have a mobile unit. So I'm thinking, like, I really love working with this specific community and the animals that they have. And the beautiful thing about the Richmond SPCA, it's kind of a unicorn, one of like the few shelters, and well, I'll say like handful of shelters in the country that have a full medical staff dedicated to like a full service hospital to people who would qualify for low cost full services. But still having that gap of care,
mm,
people really, really, really want to take care of their animal, even with like basic things like preventative care,
right.
vaccination, all that stuff that we know that is important in long-term health in our animals and in the humans that take care of them, right? Um, so when I was kind of like online and I was like looking at stuff and I heard about the street vet, and so I was like looking stuff up and I came across Street Dog and I saw that they had a Richmond chapter. So I just signed up. And so it just kind of started from there.
That's awesome. That's really exciting, and it seems to me like it's interesting. You said that these individuals want to take care of their animals. And by these individuals, I mean people who are experiencing financial hardships,
Yeah.
people who are either, unhoused or at risk of being unhoused. And I
Yeah.
think it's so interesting because so often people who aren't in our line of work might assume that individuals who are experiencing homelessness, are, not capable of taking care of themselves, so they're not capable of taking care of an animal. And, you and I know how ridiculous that is. And I almost take for granted how I know how ridiculous that is. So I really appreciate, your choice of words there is in that these people, they, individuals who are experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness, they are in many ways just like us.
Yes.
I feel like silly even saying that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this idea that these individuals, wanna care for their pets just as much as someone who lives in a home wants to care for their pets, or in my opinion, even more than someone who has a home.
Oh yeah.
That's a different podcast for a different day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we had a long conversation about that. Like
Yeah.
the no comparison. And it's I will say that so I did in my internship in DC, yes, I had people that came in, of course, with no money, right? And we had to do that. But the other thing is I encountered people who had so much money, right? Like I didn't really even have to present them with like these are all the options and this is how much it costs. It was just like, oh, I don't care, like here's my card. Or I'm gonna send my housekeeper, you tell them and they have my card, like, so I went from that to like within a week going on the opposite end. And so it
Wow.
was a little bit of a medicine culture shock for
Yeah.
me because I was such a fresh veterinarian, but it was also refreshing to be able to come across people who have the same or even more passion, just don't have the monetary resources to
Yeah.
like do what they really want and to be able to be there a lot of times, as you know, with especially with veterinary social work trying to gain more traction, veterinarians and veterinary care workers and all of us in this field, we act as essentially unlicensed social workers at the same time. And so like you create these bonds with people on purpose or not, just because you are interacting with them and having these conversations about not necessarily like how much do you love your pet, but like the way that they talk about their pet, which is basically their child or their brother or their whatever they feel the connection, their friend. And how many times I've heard, well, Well, yeah, I have no problem paying the $50 because, in my head, like, I'll just not pay this bill and I'll just, make
Wow.
sure the bill gets paid on this day. And then at least I'll have some, or like I won't go to the grocery store this week, but I have some backup canned goods. Like, hearing the sacrifices that they make for their pet is like even more of a motivation to show up and do this work for the people that need it. And the
Mm,
other thing I will say about this is um a lot of people who are housed or not even at risk of houselessness, a lot of people are 1 to 2 paychecks away of being in that situation, right? So to me, the line is really blurred. It's like
yeah.
just serving people that need it in general.
That is such a great point. And yeah, I feel like we don't talk about that enough, how the line is really blurred and how a lot of people who are fortunate enough to have homes, they're just one major life event away from being unhoused. And I mean, I know,
Right.
we hear these stories all the time. Have spoken with someone who was in a car accident and woke up, and, woke up from a coma in the hospital after a few months, didn't
Mhm.
couldn't pay their rent because they were in a literal coma, and, they had just lost their home. So they woke up in a hospital without a home. And
That's
it I know, it's very, very morbid. We got very morbid very quickly, but it is true, and it gives you, I think, to me, it gives me something to be grateful for, but also it really galvanizes my faith in the work that we do at the Street Dog Coalition
yeah,
because, I really feel like I'm helping my neighbors.
yeah, yeah.
And and I'm curious to know, I don't even think I said this. I'm in South Jersey. I'm outside of Philadelphia. Ooh,
Nice.
right, very exciting.
Yeah.
So we have a Philadelphia team. So I have a pretty good idea of how our clinics work in Philadelphia. But maybe
Mhm.
can you maybe give us um an idea of how, like, what is a typical day or experience like at your clinics,
Mm.
and is there something kind of unique to your clinics? Like, is there a I'm asking you like two questions back to back, but that's okay.
Yeah,
Is there like a specific problem that you think might be unique to Richmond that you or to the area that you live in specifically, or that these clinics are in specifically that you kind of work to solve through these clinics?
yeah. So a typical clinic, of course, there's always a lot of lead up, but we have one right now every 3 months. So we have at least one clinic a quarter. Um, When I first joined the Richmond chapter, it was always in the same place at a animal control, and they have this beautiful space outside and inside that allows, and they would host us every 3 months because they were happy to have us there. And plus, we would be able to look at their pets or their animals in their care as well because they just didn't have a on staff like any person that could do a lot of veterinary medicine on their staff. So they were like, yes, please come and also help us. Um, but since I became co-lead with Claire, and Claire was already a leader before I got there, so she's amazing. I just adore her as a partner in all this. But one of the things that I noticed, and she did too, is like we have the clinic in the same place every time, which is awesome. However, it's south of the city, is about 20 minutes south of the city. And if we're trying to reach people that don't have transportation mainly, that's tough for a whole rest of our city and
Yeah.
surrounding county. So what we have done in the past year and a half, 2 years is we have rotated the locations of our
Oh.
clinic every few months. We try because Colonial Heights area, which is this is south of Richmond, they really, I would have to say, a veterinary hospital desert. They really don't have a whole lot of consistent veterinary care down there. And if they do, of course, those hospitals are facing the same thing every hospital in America is going through: staff shortages, long wait times for appointments, all that stuff. So we do still have our clinics down there at least once to twice a year, just to make sure those people aren't forgotten. But the first thing is changing the locations of our clinics to be able to reach more people that aren't able to drive. And so we try to put them in areas where we know there's a bus stop, or we know that it's, easy access to get there, in the middle of downtown, or in another area of downtown that is still kind of far from, so we're strategically placing these clinics. The other thing that we have done in the meantime is also creating relationships with either local organizations that do rescue work, or there's a thrift store that will donate a portion of their proceeds to rescues and all that stuff. So we're trying to partner with certain organizations that also serve a community that we might not be in touch with.
Wow.
So bringing individuals in that haven't heard of us and we haven't heard of them. I would say the day of, we still have them pre-scheduled just to make sure that we have enough staff or volunteers there to serve them. We have like a set amount of volunteer, or not amount, set group of volunteers, but I feel like every clinic there's like more and more people. People bring more friends. But yeah, generally we have dog stations, cat stations. They have their exam. They get whatever they need. And then the other thing that we have slowly added to Richmond, which is not unique to Richmond per se, but it's brought all of us a lot of joy, is that we are focusing more on a One Health initiative, right? So we're trying to be able to cater to both ends of the leash, so the dog or the cat, but also the guardian, the pet guardian, or the owner or caretaker. And so the last few clinics that we've partnered with either organizations. We had a local shelter. So mainly it's called Caritas, and they're amazing. And they give us a lot of donations. So a lot of goods for women, for men, shoes, clothes, socks, underwear. We also put out an Amazon wish list, and a lot of and when I say we, I mean the Richmond SPCA, who's been a really awesome partner in terms of, donating space, but also us being able to utilize our donors, like our volunteers and the people that want to contribute, and like our media, things like that, to be able to get things purchased off of our wish list to provide for the pet guardians that come at these clinics. So the last couple clinics we've had a care package table where they can come and get basically shop. They have a food section and they have a toiletry section, and if they want to get socks and underwear, they have that too. So that's been really awesome. I've been kind of workshopping how the approach, because also I don't want to be like, oh, you're here with your dog, you must need stuff, so here's some stuff. It's more like, hey, on your way out, if that seems like something that you need, please feel free to go out and grab whatever you need. We're not gonna tell you like there's no limit, or there's dog food out there. Won't you grab some dog food? There's cat food. You need some cat food? Let me pick you up a bag while I walk you to your car. Like, try to make it more of a non-judgmental
Yeah.
approach, and not feel like these people or the attendees are forced to utilize these services. And also, none of it's manned, so it's not like someone's standing there like, you can only have this. Like, they can go when they feel comfortable. If they feel comfortable, they can take whatever they need and they can go home. They don't have to ask. Just come and get what you need and leave whenever you want. So
Mm.
that's been a really nice addition to our clinics. And there's a subset of volunteers where they love animals. However, they really love talking to the caretakers. And so it's nice to have a set of volunteers that are just dedicated to being there for the caretakers, like talking to them, walking them through, I don't know, any, like, giving out local resources of other organizations that they might know of that I don't know of, right? To help people that might be in need. So the biggest thing for Richmond is that we're expanding our services that we're able to provide, but also expanding the the types of volunteers that we are kind of drawing in.
That's really fantastic. And it's, not to get too like cheesy, but let's get cheesy.
Yeah.
We at the Street Dog Coalition, our executive director Katrina has said this so many times. We view the leash as a lifeline. It's like my
Oh yeah.
favorite. It's my
I love
favorite thing to say. And it seems to me like your clinics are really embodying that. So often people who are experiencing homelessness or at risk of experiencing homelessness, there are obviously systemic issues at play. There is obviously a society that in more ways than one has
hmm
failed them, like just
hmm
objectively failed them. A lot of these individuals are in the position that they're in for no fault of their own.
Right.
And I love this. And for that reason, a lot of these individuals, like me, for other reasons, we got trust issues, right? Like we don't necessarily feel like help comes without a cost, So sometimes these folks are just wary of handouts, wary of even signing forms with their name, and I don't blame them. So I love this idea of you leveraging this clinic for non-human animals and using it as an opportunity, it seems like, to kind of build rapport with and gain the trust of individuals who may need a little bit more than veterinary care,
Right.
who may need a few extra products and who may
Yeah.
need a little extra attention just to get by. So I love this idea. You really, your team, you and your team are just embodying this notion of using the leash as a lifeline
Yeah.
to really help all parties involved.
Yeah, and it's like it's the new line or supply of energy that comes from that. I don't I have a volunteer who is super, super, like, he loves this part of the clinic, and I do too. Um, and he said, please, like, I will definitely like take charge of this. And I'm like, be free. Like, I want to see whatever you do, I will support, as long as you keep the goal in mind. And so being able to I don't want to say cater, but nurture to that part of his passion
Yeah.
has been really wonderful.
Empower. How's that?
Yeah, there we
Empower.
go. Empower, like being able to supportive and empower that volunteer to do work that makes him feel so good and also makes us feel happy to do it is amazing. The other thing that I didn't mention before is that Richmond, as I was kind of trying to figure out like how do before I got really involved in Street Dog, how can I like bring together this One Health approach in Richmond? Because what I've noticed is that a lot of these free services or services for people like senior services or whatnot, like dental care or primary care stuff or a free pharmacy, um, any of those things. Everything is so separated in the city, which is not unique to Richmond, but I feel like if you look at the addresses for all these things, like they're literally like around the corner from each other, but it seems like they don't talk to each other. And
Wow.
so and that's tough. It's like, okay, we have to, well, I would like to create more relationships with all these different sectors, but at the same time, some of these nonprofits already kind of do that same concept. So it's nice to be able to partner with clinics in this area that have a free dental service. They also have like abused and battered individuals, they can go to some, a place. There's also like if you're having a psych or some sort of mental crisis, they have that available as well. They also have a street med team. So if you know of someone that lives in an encampment and that needs medical care or attention, they have a team for that. So being able to partner with organizations that already have these relationships in the community, but still providing all those things that they need is where our next focus is bringing that in so we don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? It's
Wow.
it's a utilizing what's already out there. And so far we've had really nice positive responses. So I am optimistic to see how we can really incorporate that long term for this chapter.
That's awesome. It really just feels like this one-stop shop for
Yeah.
all things mental and physical health. And I love this idea of, we actually were talking about this on the last podcast episode I hosted with an external partner, Harmony
Yeah.
Dog Rescue, the founder of Harmony Dog Rescue. And he was talking about how he has also kind of done something similar. He's noticed in his community that there are a lot of businesses providing services that people need, but these businesses are not really talking to one another, and they're not really, some of them have problems that other ones can solve, and then those have problems that that other one can solve.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's really interesting to hear that you have kind of developed this zoomed out, in addition to zoomed in perspective on the issues facing your community, how to solve
Hmm.
these issues, and who the key players should be in solving these
Right.
issues. And
Yeah.
I, yeah, and I know that our listeners, our listeners are veterinarians, they're volunteers, they're some of our donors and supporters, and
Mhm.
I know they're hearing this, and I know they're getting excited. And my my final question for you, although I we are vibing right now, and
Yep.
you
God.
already know I could just talk to you for 10 hours. But my final question is, if someone is listening to this, and if they are either a veterinary student, or if they have no experience with animals at all, but they have been tuning into a few episodes and they
Mhm.
think they might want to volunteer, but they're not sure yet, what kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah. First of all, just having interest in volunteering time for whatever mission or passion you have is amazing, right? Giving of yourself in that way is awesome. For street dog in particular, or for any sort of animal related experience, I always say just shadow, just be in the, like, be in
Love
it.
that.
You don't have to participate actively, but even like being around what you think you might want to be around will give you so much knowledge. And being around, like, you'll know, oh, these are the kind of people I want to be around, or this is the kind of stuff I want to see, or like, I didn't know this or I didn't know that. Just from observation would give you a lot of information, and that will kind of set you up for, do I want to continue to pursue this, or that was cool, but maybe I want to pursue something else. Or it connects you with people that could connect you with others. And really, I find that yes, life is about a lot of things, a lot of things. However, one thing that, especially this time in my career, in my life, I see the value of building relationships and networking. And so even if you don't do a whole lot with one type of organization, at least you have that relationship line, and that can also lead to other things. And never say, really, at this point, don't say no. Like, just go for it. Like, say yes.
I love that. Oh my gosh, I love this idea of you suggesting that individuals just shadow, because I know it can be kind of intimidating when you're rolling up anywhere
Yeah.
solo with
Yeah.
your heart on your sleeve, just at a
Yeah.
prayer in your heart.
Yeah.
But like anything, showing up is like most of the battle. So
Yeah.
in my experience, anytime I've like dragged my feet going somewhere,
Mhm.
um, even if it's somewhere I really want to be, I realize once I'm there, I have this moment of this sigh, and I realize that I'm surrounded by people who are passionate about something that I'm passionate about. And even if I don't have a lot to offer in this moment other than a smile and
Yeah.
a joke that may or may not be funny, um, that's still something. So I love
Yeah.
this idea of just showing up and
Mhm.
expecting the worst, getting the best. That's usually what happens.
Exactly. I mean, you have nothing to lose. Not showing up is an automatic no, but showing up is a possibility, right? So
Love
just go
that.
for it. Go for it.
Brittany, thank you so, so, so much. And I want to tell our listeners, who are tuning in to this live replay, that in our show notes we do have a link to our website, and on our website you can volunteer, you can make a donation, you can just learn more about our organization, you can follow us on social media, share one of our posts, anything that you can do and are willing to do to even just raise awareness about what we're doing over here would be so greatly appreciated. And if you are in and for those of you who don't know, we have teams in over 60 cities across the country. But if you are in Richmond, I
Yeah.
mean, the holy grail of teams right here. Please run, don't walk. Brit'nee, you're
Come
just
on.
fun. I'm trying to come to Richmond and hang out with you.
Yeah, for real. You're always welcome. Always.
Brit'nee, again, I'm gonna end this episode the way I started, off camera, and that is just by thanking you. Thank you for all that you do for animals. As someone who is not a veterinarian, I like idolize you. I think what you do is so cool, really awesome. Honestly, just such a hero of mine. All of our veterinarians are. And I want to thank you for taking the time to chat with us today, inspire us today. This has been like the best episode ever. And that doesn't even surprise me. So, yeah, Brit'nee, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been such a pleasure. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thanks to our listeners for tuning in. And Brit'nee, until next time, there's got to be a next time.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Have a good one, Brit'nee. Take care. Until then.
you. Bye.